This analysis I've completed to continue on with the discussion about using no-cost financing or lender credits to pay for fees on a transaction. So I've gone with the same programs that we had on the prior blog, talking about the 4.25% interest rate transaction with fees and a 4.625 with a lender credit. By clicking the more information button here that I've found closing cost breakdowns, and I can't get this to a precision number to show the exact difference of the $6,000, but there's $6,000 difference between these two transactions. Here are the closing cost on the transaction, which includes daily interest and the $3,000 in fees, and this is the prepaids putting monies into the impound account for taxes and insurance, and this is the half a point we had talked about before on the prior transaction. So the total fees on this transaction, $59.98. On the 4.625, because we have the fees, but we have a lender credit of $4,500 to apply towards everything, we're coming down to a nearly zero amount of closing cost. So you can see the variance is almost exactly $6,000 between the two programs. Going over to this box, monthly payment savings, of course the higher interest rate transaction has a higher payment by $67. So on a monthly basis there's going to be a $67 added expense for the no fee transaction. I did a calculation over a 64-month period of time. That is actually the break-even point that this system shows for when the break-even takes place between these two programs. And let me show more details on that. So as you'll see here, you've spent quite a bit more on the principal and interest payments on the transaction. The principal is reduced more on a lower interest rate transaction than a higher interest rate transaction. So the lower the interest rate, the faster the amortization takes place on a transaction. So at that same time frame, 64 months into the future, this one has a balance of 270, where this one has a balance of 272. So the total of all the cost involved into the transaction is finally broken even at the 64 months. This calculation over here shows the total principal and interest paid for the period of time of 15 years on the transaction. So you can see that this transaction is $16,000 behind over a 15-year amortization period if you took that higher interest rate transaction with the no fees. Here's a breakdown of what that would look like. I went back into the system and changed it to a 60 months so we could look at what it actually looks like at a 5-year time frame. So at a 5-year time frame, the 4.625% transaction still is at a winner of $393 of total over here. You have paid about $6,000, $5,200 more on interest on the transaction, but you did not have the closing expenses up front. So break-even point really is right around that 64 month period of time. I have now changed the transaction to show over the entire 30-year time frame how much difference there is between the two different programs. So under a long-term hold, you'll see that you'd lose $18,000 on the low expense transaction, the lender credit transaction. Here's the difference in the total payments between the two programs. Okay, I've now gone in and added a third dimension, and what I've done here is I've taken the same lender credit transaction, but instead of just saving the money and using it for something else on that $6,000 difference between the two programs, I said, well, what if we actually just took that additional $6,000 and reduced the balance on this transaction to $294,000? So how would that going to work out into the calculations? You'll see now that your payment is only $35 higher on the transaction as compared to this program. and you'll see that you're still quite a ways ahead in the 64-month period of time. I'm going to pause and make some adjustments and see what the break-even point here is now. What we learned from this now is that the reduced balance transaction actually is still a winner over an 83-month period of time. So reducing the balance, using the monies for invested into the property equity, and reducing the loan balance is a savings that is created still through an 83-month period of time. There are hundreds of other ways to put this transaction together to show different options. What I basically just wanted to show is that the amortization variance between the two programs is somewhat different. The lower the interest rate, the faster the amortization on a program is. But I think the most important part is this specifically is this break-even point. Determining when you estimate that the total cost between different programs is going to break even, then make an assumption as to if that time frame is going to fit within your guidelines for when you think that you would own the home, possibly the ability to refinance at a future time. A lot of variables to take into consideration as to when something might occur prior to that break-even point for consideration of the using the lower cost lender credit transactions. Hope you enjoyed this.